What is a story that you want to tell but can't find the right AskReddit? One day after sending my GF home after our date, my car ran into some major engine trouble not far from her place. Smoke coming out from under the hood kind of trouble. It was quite late already and no mechanic I know is going to take the call, so I called her and asked if I could stay the night. Her dad showed up on his bike to pick me up. The next morning I awoke to my car at her doorstep. Her dad had went back to where my car broke down on the side of a highway, in the dead of night, and worked through till dawn to get it fixed. I think I may have just gotten her parents' approval. I survived a cancer with a 4% survival rate and am part of the 40% of severes that isn't handicapped or some shit. A vending machine got jammed mid-snack drop then laughed at me. Turns out pushing the coin return button on this one restarts the digital have a nice day dialogue scroll, so every time I mashed it repeatedly in frustration it was trying to scroll the message. But all I saw was ha 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 ha. I saved someone's life and as a result they saved mine. I was out for a night walk with a friend and saw her on the wrong side of the railing on a bridge. I talked her down while my friend called police. I was holding her in my arms when the police and ambulance showed up. It was at a time where I was in a dark place, and helping her and seeing her in such a situation was enough for me to realize I needed help. I'm in a much better place now and I hope she is too. My girlfriend and I started dating at the start of last summer and she told me that her mom, who was terminally sick with cancer, wanted her to come up before she went back to school in the fall. She was voicing her feelings about not wanting to go because of this and that, and how she would rather spend time with me instead. Well, I jokingly told her that I would buy my own round-trip flight to go visit, and she would be welcome to join me as well if she'd like. She told me that her mom was going through a round of chemo and wouldn't be in the best health to do any activities while we were up there, to which I replied that's okay, she can play board games though, right? Her face lit up after hearing that. We make the flight out to her parents and I will for always remember the look of pure joy her mom had as she came walking towards us at the front door. She was so happy that her daughter had come home to visit and I remember hugging what was a very frail frame. I held back my tears in seeing this all play out in front of me. It meant the world to her that we were all there. The next few days, we saw her health deteriorate. She couldn't even stand up or walk anymore. We ate out dinner once and she needed help walking back to the car. It was mind-numbing to see, as I've never personally seen someone fighting cancer/chemo. We got to play board games every night and that's where we bonded over silly little things. I had brought up a few of my favorite games like Farkle, Codenames, and For Sale and they loved them all. It was a great time. I remember the final goodbye before we left for the airport. It felt somber leaving. Lots of hugs and farewells were said. Not even 5 days later, her mother had a major stroke and passed away in a coma. It was an absolute shock. After experiencing this, I can assuredly say that her mom was only alive for the sole purpose of seeing her daughter one last time before passing on. I am so unbelievably happy that I pushed for this. To my girlfriend, there is nothing more valuable in the world than the week we spent at her parents' house last summer. My cousin used to play in the NFL. One game, he gave us family passes so we could meet up with him in the players'/family tent after the game. Watched the game, went down there, and I had to pee. I remember I had passed a security guard when we arrived in the area and went back to that spot to see if they could tell me where a bathroom was because I couldn't find anyone else that worked there. The security guard was nowhere to be found and I really had to pee, so I followed a long hallway back and the only thing at the end of the hallway was a set of giant double doors. I opened one and started walking into the locker room. Looked up, saw some of the players changing, 1 or 2 in towels, and definitely a couple with everything hanging out. I'm just this little 5'2" female that wasn't even wearing a jersey from their team. I had a Pro Bowl jersey on of a player from a different team, and I walked right on into an NFL locker room like it was my business to be in there, and then I walked right on out. Never told my cousin, and never told anyone in my family. Was definitely super embarrassed at the time. Now it's just funny. I have an elderly neighbor who lives upstairs. I don't know his name, so I'm going to call him Fred for the sake of this story. Fred is a strange individual. He plays piano at 3 in the morning. He just glares at you if you say something to him. He doesn't speak to anyone really. I've only seen him interacting with a human once, when he was yelling at a salesman. I don't know who Fred is, because he's my only neighbor with an unmarked mailbox. Based on Fred's observable behavior, I would definitely label him as a recluse. About a month ago I got home, pulled into my parking lot and turned off my car. I heard something that sounded like a gunshot, so I waited in my car for a bit, then finally decided to venture out into the unknown. I saw Fred crouched beside one of my neighbor's cars with something in his hand. I noticed the vehicle's tire had been slashed. As I walked past, I asked Fred if his tire got popped. He just stared at me with an eerie, emotionless glare, the kind of glare that makes you feel like he's looking straight through you, so I promptly started walking towards my door. Before I went inside, I looked back and saw that he had been holding a knife. This past weekend, Fred decided to slash another tire for a reason unbeknownst to me, but this time Fred's tire victim saw it happen, and confronted him about it. Fred and the man broke out in a heated argument, and Fred threatened to shoot his victim. The man went inside and immediately called the police. A little bit later the police showed up and knocked on Fred's door. Fred walked out of his door, saw that there were police officers, apparently felt like he was trapped, so he proceeded to quickly pull out a gun and blow his own brains out in front of the police. When I was 2, my mom started to potty train me. Things were going pretty well, and I got to wear normal underwear. Well, while wearing normal underwear, I was running around the house. She sat on the sofa watching TV. Suddenly, I froze. She looked over at me and I looked her dead in the eye. Then I spread my legs. Then I fucking pissed all over myself and the floor. All without saying a single word. I called a person with the same name as me, say Emily, not my real name. Our conversation went. Her, hello, this is Emily. Me, yes? Very long pause. Her, what? Me, oh sorry, hello, my name is Emily too. And then I died inside. My uncle once took me tobogganing when I was about 5 or 6. He brought along his friend and his friend's son, and we were having a good time, and we decided to make our way fully up the hill. We were only going from about halfway before. On top of the hill we found a bathtub and went tobogganing in it. I wasn't sure if this was just a dream or not until I told my mom about it, assuming it was a dream, and she confirmed it actually happened. I had a pet chicken that would casually have what seemed to be sexual relationships with pigeons. A squirrel gave me an acorn. Birds have shit on my pizzas twice. When I was younger, I had a ladybug pillow pet when pillow pets were somehow the rage back then. I was once in the airport waiting for a flight that got delayed, and I put my ladybug on top of my suitcase. There was another, much younger kid also at the gate, and he took notice of my pillow pet. His mom asked me if I could let him borrow it to play, and I gave her the go-ahead. The kid was immediately ecstatic and started throwing the ladybug up in the air to catch it. He was overall just having a fun time playing while I watched. My dad and I went to walk around the airport to find a place to eat before boarding call, and when we came back, we found the kid sleeping on the seats while resting his head on the pillow pet. His mom thanked us for letting her son play with my plush, and when we were called to board, she gave back the pillow to me so I could use it for the flight. I hate waiting at the airport and having to deal with the occasional unfriendly traveler. But whenever I go to the airport and have a bad time, I sometimes think about the one kid whose boredom I killed by letting him borrow my pillow pet. When I, Nza, was backpacking in Spain, I met another backpacker who was half Romanian, half Argentinian. I happen to know 3 national anthems, those 2 plus my own country's. The look on his face when I sang him both of his national anthems was priceless, and I have never been so proud as I was in that moment. I was talking to my school's security guard and he asked me a question, and I inadvertently asked, "Are you talking to me?" And he confusedly replied yes with a smile, and at that moment I wanted to just excuse myself for the rest of my life, as I had forgotten that he's cross-eyed. I felt so bad because he's genuinely a nice guy, and I felt like a bitch afterwards. I work at a lumber outlet. My second day on the job, my boss calls me over to introduce me to someone. At first, I thought it was a new employee, so I said welcome to the team. Then I realized my mistake, we laughed, and started chatting. This man started telling us about different cultures, and how most people would consider LA to be overcrowded, but have never been to India, so their frame of reference is skewed. Then he started talking about eating crickets for protein, and how he hates the beef industry. Then he took off in his Tesla, which had a towing hitch attached to it. I mentioned to my boss how cool it was to see a Tesla with a towing ball on it, and he said, "Do you realize who that was?" I said no, and he proceeded to tell me that this guy was Brian Thompson, a man who acted in movies with Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and most importantly to me, played Buffalo Bill in Joe Dirt. It was the happiest day of my life. An accomplished actor came to our humble lumber yard, and I mistook him for a new employee. My friends and I were skipping our exam and went to the boys' locker room and decided, as females, that my friend was going to pee in the urinal. As we chanted "Do it, do it, do it," this teacher, who was later fired for impregnating a student, walks in and just awkwardly screams "Sorry" and leaves. The story of getting JJ started way back in 2006 or 2007. Tomo was unquestionably Mom's dog. He wouldn't walk if she wasn't there, he would sit and stare at the door for hours waiting for her to come home. I asked Mom and Dad if I could get a dog for myself, since I realized that it was because Mom was the one who took care of Tomo and bonded with him, when he was a puppy, that I could raise to be my little buddy. At that point we knew that we would be moving soonish. So the answer I got was that I could get a dog when we moved if I still wanted one. So, once we moved, and spent the first couple months getting things put together, Dad asked me if I still wanted a dog. I hadn't been thinking about getting a dog with everything that had been going on, but I was over the moon about getting the chance. I spent hours looking at the Humane Society website putting together my list. Then we finally went to go look. The plan was to only look, but, well, we can see how that turned out. We looked at a bunch of different dogs, big and small. We were just about to leave and come back another time when Dad pointed JJ out and asked if we should look at this one last dog. He looked so small and scared on his little cot thing. He was shaking like a leaf when we took him out to the little dog area. At first he was huddled up against Dad, but Dad said that if he was gonna be my dog, then I should hold him, so we kinda scooched him over onto my lap, and I gave him a hug. He was stiff for a second but then seemed to decide that I was okay and just melted into me. When we took him out front to walk him around, he wouldn't walk on the leash for Mom or Dad, and he stuck right by my side. I definitely wasn't gonna let him spend another night in the cold, scary Humane Society. At least, not alone. That was probably the first time I ever really put my foot down about something. He was either coming with me, or I was going to stay with him. I remember that he was so scared that he peed on my lap while we were driving home. Which was one of the only 2 times that he had problems with potty training. It must have been a week or two that I spent just hanging out with him in the fireplace room. Every day all day because he was just so sick. Once he was finally feeling well enough to move into my room, he would cry, because he was in his little kennel thing while I was up on the loft bed. That night was the last time I slept in the loft bed. I got my camping pad out and slept next to his kennel so that he could see that I was there. As soon as we were positive that he was potty trained, I let him sleep on my bed with me. It was then that I learned that he really loved to patrol. He would curl up on my bed for a while, but after about an hour he would get up and go check on everyone else, then he would go check that everything was alright on the place before coming back to sleep. He died just over a month ago. He had just turned 11. I'm mostly okay now. But it still hurts to think he's gone. Sure lol. My freshman year of university we had an football team and we were straight trash. I'm talking blown out every game without scoring a single point all year trash. Anyways, last game of the year we are down like 35 or something points with time dwindling, but somehow the other team had busted coverage that allowed our guy to get down the field and score a TD. Our team went freaking nuts like it was 1999. Guys on the sidelines running on the field, guys hugging like we had won the Super Bowl, guys diving on top of the dude who scored. In talking like last second victory in the championship game of an inspirational football movie celebration. Refs were just other students and the other team was pretty chill, so they basically let us finish up our wild celebration and kill like 2 minutes of the running clock celebrating. We ended up losing like 35-7 or whatever, but it was still one of the greatest moments of my freshman year because of how stupid it was.